It's a time where humans are not in control anymore. There's something of a higher order. Eclipses are fated event. It's a time of divine intervention. Things can be taken away from you as well, things that you don't need any longer. But it's a time where many new souls come in and then those who leave.
I was traveling all over the place to teach and speak and lead, and then out of nowhere, I had the same lower back pain. Suddenly I couldn't walk, and I was forced to fly back to Malaysia after that, and completely changed the way I run my business. And there's like huge realignment that's happening.
When you had the breakout and you had your health crisis back then, the nodes were probably in Virgo Pisces, in the health axis. And then you went through a transformation and you took control of your life. Once you understand your chart, you realize you're not crazy. The chart reveals what is it you are meant to do here and now.
Before we begin, I want to let you know why this conversation exists. There was a season in my life, right around in my 20s, where I was so lost and I didn't know what to do. I left 2 prestigious universities, I left my friends, I went against medical advices, I go against my parents' wishes, and I did not know actually how to navigate my life. So I was lost and confused, and this is when Maurice Fernandez showed up in my life, where he had given me a map to understand my soul, to understand how I feel on the inside, and it had helped me felt really seen and appreciated that I have my own unique path to walk. He have gave me practical advices on how to navigate this journey and answer some deep existential questions of like, who am I, why am I here, and where am I going towards? What is the destiny of my life? So today I want to sit you down on the conversation who might experience the same crossroads as I did. Maybe you're successful on the outside and everything that you thought was amazing start to crumble and you feel kind of empty on the inside and wondering what you need to be doing with your life. If you're seeking clarity, you're seeking purpose, seeking a direction in your life, this episode is for you, as we're going to unpack what does it mean to be humans, to be leaders, to be active participants of life during this time where we are entering a new season in the astrological weather. What's coming is an eclipse so powerful that it's going to change the way we act, the way we choose, the way we relate with one another, and what it means to navigate through these circumstances gracefully. Eclipses is a time where divine intervention can happen and our lives can rapidly change. So do take out your pen and paper and write down those notes that you're gonna get from this episode, because you're gonna sit on this for a while. One small thing before we begin. Most of us watching this show aren't subscribed yet. And I understand, because I do the same. But this show exists to be the light, to help people navigate through difficult and unforeseen circumstances that has no answer to. So you subscribing this means the whole world to us and costs nothing for you. And in subscribing, you help us on the mission to help many others looking for the same light. Your presence matters, so let's take a deep breath. This is Maurice Fernandez. All right, we are live. Thank you, Maurice, for being here, for your time. I know you're a very busy man, so hard to get. Welcome to the Lighthouse Initiative podcast.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. I want to introduce you in a way that is very different from most podcasts, because I was your student and I get to meet you, and I just want to recount that first memory of meeting you. Takes us back to 2015, Boulder, Colorado, when I just first started my journey, in a sense of really understanding what the stars is saying about my life and where I am heading. And just for context, for everybody listening to this, I was a very lost kid who have mysterious symptoms of his body, doesn't know how to heal. And Maurice played a deep, powerful role in my life to show me why things have to happen that way. And without further ado, I actually embarked on this journey to study astrology, and it has changed my life profoundly. I'm still using it today. I'm still using it with my clients today, and it has profoundly changed their lives as well.
So it's so much honor. Here's how I like to start, Maurice. Why now? Why should we study astrology? Why should we understand, you know, the language of the stars into the context of how we're living our lives today?
First of all, thank you. And I can relate to what you're saying because it also changed my life way back when I was introduced to the more serious study of astrology. And when you say why now, I first of all will say it's true through time. Astrology has been with us for thousands of years in different ways. You know, it was more accessible to the nobility and to the leaders, but today, through technology and the internet revolution, it has become accessible on a such a vast level. And one of the ways I like to explain it is we are born into this world trying to figure everything out. You know, sometimes from scratch. We learn from our teachers, we learn from our parents, we learn from mentors. But astrology is one of these modalities that actually give you a manual, a map. The map not only of life, but the map of your own soul. And it gives precise details about why are you here and how to make the best of it. And there's always a debate about, so does that mean my life is all set in stone and it's written in the stars? Partially so. We come from the point of view that the day you are born is not random. Why were you born on that date, in that year, in that place, and not an hour later? So that has to do with the alignment between your soul journey and the universe, life. So astrology is so important today when so much is happening so fast. Our nervous systems are easily overwhelmed. We are trying to absorb so much information. And I will say, a lot of what is going on is that our own biology, our own neurological system are upgrading constantly because we need to constantly upgrade our inner software um, to be able to move to the next phase of civilization. So, part of the challenge of what is happening to humanity is not only, a crisis here and a change there, but it's also that internally our brain is morphing, our physical, visual, all our senses are transforming as we go, and that in itself takes a lot of energy. And so
Absolutely.
astrology is is a helpful tool to make sense of why now, why later, and what's our role in all of this.
And why always?
Why always?
And in history, we all know that astrology get a bad rap from both sides, right? One from the religious sect. Then we went, call this an occult studies, and people are burned alive for studying these things. And then on the other end, when the scientific revolution came in, they just say, astrology is just woo-woo stuff, it's bullshit. And we see this in history and we see this today. And we do experience, right, being stuck on both sides. And I wonder on your personal account, when you found astrology, do you have that inner conflict in memory and also is it also being experienced in your relationship of like, how people see you and treat you just because you're studying this thing?
Yes and no. I mean, I was very lucky to have a lot of freedom to be able to pursue that. And so when it came into my life, obviously I had no idea that it would become so important. But it made immediate sense. I didn't have inner resistance because, I will say it seems like I was already on a soul level familiar with astrology. And for me, it was, oh, a moment of understanding, of clarity. I was very empowered when I got involved in astrology, in the sense that, like you, I was a little bit lost, maybe a lot. And it finally made sense because once you understand your chart, you realize you're not crazy. You realize you don't need to be doing what other people are doing. We all have our own makeup, our own um, alignments, our own wiring. And the chart reveals what is it you are meant to do here and now. So I suddenly realized that all these things that I was feeling were not wrong. I didn't need to suppress them. I didn't need to try to be somebody I wasn't. That was very liberating. But then I didn't, like I said, I didn't know what would happen with it. And life kind of brought people who wanted to learn more and to study, and it kind of took over.
Totally resonated with what you say. And I remember my first experience when astrology is introduced to me. Of course, I've read it as a kid, in the newspaper, in the column where they're talking about the horoscopes. I never really resonated with that. And then when someone actually showed me the chart for the very first time and shared about my life, it's almost as if they're speaking into my soul and my thoughts that I've not shared with anybody. I don't even share these thoughts with my parents. But astrology was just saying everything they knew about me. And that was the moment when I felt like, wow, there's something here. And the craziest thing happened is after that, when I had a 2 hour reading. It was a very long reading. But in that 2 hours, my mind just memorized all those glyphs, all those symbols, as if it's just English language for me. And I just understand what they're trying to say. And it's just like so resonance of really understanding the thing. And there was a big pulling after that of really just trying to understand what the chart is really saying. When did you discover astrology? At what age?
I like you, I discovered it through popular publications. There was a sun sign book that my mother had in the library, and that was my first fascination because that book, which is supposed to be very simplistic, very basic astrology, was actually so accurate. It showed something that was real for me, but I was just a kid and I forgot about it until I was about 18. And that's when a friend kind of convinced me to take a class. And I didn't even know you could study that. But because that's the thing is when you're at school, or even most parents, they don't tell you should be an astrologer when you grow up. It's not part of the options. Because of what you're saying earlier, is that there's so much bias against it, there's so much misunderstanding that it's often seen as something frivolous or pseudoscience. And to answer your question, I didn't fully answer it. Um, I remember when I became a professional and I started my business, and I went to my accountant to pay my taxes. And he kind of asked me questions and said, so what are you doing? And I said, I'm an astrologer. And he asked me again, what are you doing? What's your profession? He could not believe that I would have that as my main income and profession. It was completely ridiculous to him. And so my perhaps luck and confidence is that because astrology was so powerful in my life, I had no need to hide it. I was out of that closet. And I talked to everyone about what I was doing. And that's actually, most people were interested. Most people wanted to have a reading. And, that's how I started to teach, is interest showing up. But there were definitely, a lot of that need to navigate prejudice, argument. Another funny thing, um, in casual conversations, when people again ask me what I'm doing and I'm saying I'm an astrologer, some of them say, "Oh, that's wonderful. You're an astronomer." And and then they talk to me about all the recent discoveries of, this probe that was sent to the exoplanets and to Uranus, and they start to talk about this, scientific side of things. And you know, I'm also very well versed in astronomy, so
Mm-hmm.
I talk to him about it. But it's an internal inside joke, basically.
Right. Did you at any point that you have to like battle yourself or to convince yourself that this is the path, or because you, like you say, you didn't know that there is a possibility that you can do this as a profession until you take your first class. What did you wanted to do before astrology found you?
I was confused. I was, just out of high school, basically, but I was mostly invested in artistic pursuits. I was studying sound engineering. And so that was part of what I was doing. But astrology, I did not struggle, I must say, because it really came into my life and it took me.
Hmm.
So it led me to do more and more of what I'm doing. And it was such a powerful uncovering, because as I went deeper into it, there were deeper realization. It's hard for someone to understand when you're on the outside of it, but it is really, you suddenly realizes that up to that point, you had a lot of fog on your glasses, and you couldn't see. You thought you saw clearly, but you didn't. And then with astrology, it provides this framework of existence that works. That's the bottom line, is that it's not something that you say, oh, people want to believe in it because it makes them feel good, because
Hmm.
it's some kind of, personal projection. You see it working. You see your life going in the direction that it's showing. You see also the choices that you make that resonate with a higher universal plan.
Powerful. And it's so interesting that you found astrology at 18, 19, around that time, because that was the same time I found astrology. And from what I know in both our charts, we share the same nodal axis, so Leo Aquarius axis. And it's also interesting because this month we are in the Aquarius, Leo Aquarius axis right again. And it's coming back to
Absolutely.
us. And I can see that there's a divine timing in order. Astrology is the study of time and patterns of nature, and I always like to put it that way. And you know, I really want to dive into the meat of astrology and the time where we're in right now, because the nodal axis, for those of you who don't know what it is, it has something to do with the eclipse. I'll let Maurice explain it. What are eclipses? And what does it mean when the nodal axis is shifting signs, and especially in the sign of Leo and Aquarius?
Yeah, the nodal axes are 2 points that are exactly opposite one another, and they are basically the point of intersection between the moon and the sun path. So these 2 points are always there. But when the moon and the sun actually meet these points, it's an eclipse. They come in pairs. There are two eclipses that are 2 weeks apart, a lunar one and a solar one. And the difference between them is the lunar eclipse is a full moon on the node, and the solar eclipse is a new moon on the node. So the sun and moon are together, or the sun and moon are opposite one another on this axis. And the way it works, again, as simple as we can put it, it's a time where humans are not in control anymore. There's something of a higher order. Eclipses are fated event. It's like I will be a little bit spiritual about it. It's a time of divine intervention. And so the same way that the physical effect of an eclipse is that suddenly there's no light, even if it's just symbolic, because usually you can still see. But that moment of a total eclipse where you're suddenly in the darkness, it is a time where basically you're not allowed to know, you're not allowed to see. Something is operating on your behalf or for humanity. Usually, it's a time where things happen very quickly, changes, opportunities, or I like to describe it as a portal opening. It's like you're moving the combination of a safe deposit, and you turn the dials, and when the eclipse is on, the door opens. And that basically means that many new insights are coming into our consciousness, and many things are leaving. There's some kind of exchange and traffic. This is, on the dramatic side, this is why many cultures were sometimes afraid of eclipses, because in the middle of the day or in the middle of the night, there's some kind of light phenomena. It's very visual. But the thing is that things can be taken away from you as well, things that you don't need any longer. But it's a time where many new souls come in and then those who leave. So these coming eclipses are going to be um, August 12th in the sign of Leo, because the nodes are moving to Leo Aquarius. So that's a solar eclipse on August 12th. And then 2 weeks later, the lunar eclipse will be actually in Virgo Pisces, because there's a little gap between Leo and Virgo. And so it happens to be right on that boundary. So what you referred to earlier, we call this whole time an eclipse season, because what's important is not just the moment the eclipse occurs, but 2 weeks prior, then you have 2 weeks in between, and then 2 weeks after is more or less what we call the eclipse season. And that's where all these rapid changes can occur that are often not planned. And it can elevate someone if you've been waiting for something important, a job change, or a move, or selling an apartment. The eclipse can accelerate everything. And yeah, we're in it. We're experiencing that. The last time it happened was in February, end of February 2026. And we know that led to the war with Iran, which happened just as the planet Mars hit the eclipse degree. And Mars has to do with battles. So it doesn't always have to be contentious like that. It's just that eclipse had that flavor because Mars was so involved. But it's a game changer. And you know, it's something of a higher order of some sort.
Absolutely. What I've experienced during eclipses is, like you said, a time of acceleration, a divine order. It's almost as if I'm not in control. And the more I let go, the more, things just unfold on itself. It's kind of like riding the waves. If we didn't learn how to ride the waves, we just tend to be in the right place in the right time. But it's definitely emotionally intense and almost like when emotions rise so quickly, we just kind of lose ourselves in it.
You
And
know,
yeah, go
go
ahead.
ahead. I want to say, as we astrologers track where it's happening, there's also, the tracking of where the path of the eclipse is physically, because the eclipse is going to be visible only in parts of the world. This one is going to go through Greenland,
Mm,
right? So pay attention to that. But what I want to say is that as powerful as it is, there are, eclipses happen twice a year. So not everyone is going to have their life, go through this kind of transformation and acceleration. Sometimes I think it's important to say that if it doesn't affect your chart, you won't necessarily feel it, but you may see people around you who are negotiating new things or, getting a new job in Singapore and they have to pack and go and things that are kind of putting them on the spot. But I don't want people to kind of feel overly anxious about this. Just to understand that, if, as you said, astrology is a study of time, and if it's the right time for you, then, the chart will reveal that.
definitely. And astrology, as we know, is like cycles upon cycles. And as much as there's two eclipses in a year, and depending on what sign that they're in, right, it activates or, it just goes through somebody and it's just an experience. We are about to enter a Leo Aquarius eclipse pattern, right? And that will be around for the next 18 months. And the last 18 months, the nodal axis is in, the Virgo Pisces axis. And we all know in the last 18 months, a lot of employment changes, people losing jobs, a lot of new kind of sickness and viruses are in the air, creating some level of like existential kind of like worry. What does it mean for us right now in the next 18 months to step into the Leo Aquarius axis?
Yeah, the previous cycle in, brought I'm speaking also from the United States point of view because this is where I live. Um, a lot of changes also in the health, because Virgo Pisces have to do both with health and with work and labor force. So you had these two issues where there were a lot of reforms in the health department, better and worse, depending on what you experienced personally. But there was a lot of changes in how they handled vaccines and, um, you know, some people say it's reckless, some people say it's important. And then also the AI revolution taking jobs. And suddenly it's not just people changing jobs, but people having to think about what they want to do because, do you need a graphic designer today? Do you need a translator today? Right? AI is doing a lot of things that humans used to do, and it's only getting more and more. So the whole change, the global change in the labor force, is very visible and palpable. Now that it moves into Leo Aquarius, part of the spiritual intention is that we have to become custodians of this planet and this life, which means if you look at the symbology of Leo Aquarius, the lion, and Aquarius represents the human. If you look at the symbol of Aquarius, it's one of the, it's represented by a human angel or a human who pours water from above, from the sky. And who are the human and the lion? They are on top of the food chain in the world. That's why they're put on this same axis in astrology, which basically means that we have to step up to be leaders of our own destiny. Instead of waiting for things to happen, we have to make them happen. And one aspect of it is here, what is your calling? You know, you may feel like you need to do something meaningful with your life. You need, you know, like if you change your job, what is a job that is going to really make a difference? But on a shadow level, it's also about the right use of power, about how to use this leadership. Now, on a deeper level, you know, a lot of this has to do with how to create a better future for us personally and humanity. So the Leo Aquarius axis doesn't only work for now. It plants seeds for our children and the next generations. It has impact on several future generations. So it's very, very critical. And on a very simple level, Leo has to do with where can you shine your light? And Aquarius is how can you work together with others? So it brings cooperation with personal agency. I like to, use some, a fun illustration of that. Mick Jagger is the Leo, the singer, and the Rolling Stones is the Aquarius. So are you part of the group or are you doing your solo work?
Or John Lennon and the Beatles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you see the personality of the leader of the band. Like there's no Rolling Stone without Mick Jagger, but there's also no Mick Jagger without the Rolling Stones. Like they need one another. And that's what this axis is going to be about, is how do we find our personal agency and calling and inspiration, but how can we work in a larger setting so that it's not just, self-serving?
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense.
Before we go further, a quick pause. If something in this conversation hits you deeply on the inside, do not let these ideas and insights go to fade. There's something that I say that insights is just another beautiful experience, but insights, when you apply, create a potent and powerful transformation in your life. This is why I built the Lighthouse community, and I bring people every single week to talk about the insights that is being shared in the episode so that we can create an open space, a safe space for us to discuss, integrate, and apply this beautiful wisdom that is shared in the podcast episodes into our lives. You'll find leaders like you across Malaysia, across Asia, and some even in the United States, sharing conversations, experiences, and insights where we pull all these answers together to figure out those 2 a.m., 3 a.m. questions that linger in our consciousness that we would love to be answered. Every episode has its own discussion, and when you come into this space, you get to also bring and share your unique insights into the space and contribute to each other's lives. The link is in the show notes. Come and join us and find your tribe. I'm on a mission. When we all come together in a community, we can co-create a brighter and more beautiful world that we know is possible. Now back to the conversation.
And I just want to recount one of my memories because 18 years ago, we are in the same pattern, and eclipses, we can talk more about it, that it kind of repeats every 18 years, 18 and a half years. I had a health struggle right before I discovered astrology, and I was bedridden, and I made a decision to drop all medication and pursue a natural healing path. And there was two incidents where I had a lower back pain that was so painful and I couldn't walk. And then I have a breakout from my skin after that. That was 18 years ago. Last year, I was traveling all over the place to teach and speak and lead. And then out of nowhere, I had the same lower back pain. No physical trauma, no nothing. It just decided to act up. And suddenly I couldn't walk. And I was forced to fly back to Malaysia after that and completely change the way I run my business, right? Change the way I work, change the way of like what kind of offerings and services I'm putting out there. And there's like huge realignment that's happening. And a couple months ago, I had a skin breakup out of nowhere again, because I have not had this for a long time after my healing. And again, it's just calling and it's just speaking to me about like what I need to change in my life and what kind of service that I'm here to provide to people. And it almost as if it's transitioning really, really well into stepping into the next 18 months about what you're really saying about personal agency and being able to collaborate and create something more meaningful beyond the self and to the community, and it passes on through time. And same thing happened 18 years ago where I moved away from home to expand myself, to get myself educated, and I was part of a dance team. And that's when I discovered dance, discovered art, discovered astrology, and a lot of these aspects are just part of like my life. And right now, in the next 18 months, I can see myself moving into this new era again of leading what it means to activating all this potential inside of us. So I'm wondering, like, this is my example. I'm wondering if there's any of your own personal account where eclipses just kind of like, here you go, Maurice, deal with it. And then it just kind of lead you to something greater beyond what you can imagine or plan for yourself.
Just to reflect on what you were sharing, it's interesting, when you had the breakout and you had your health crisis back then, the nodes were probably in Virgo Pisces in the health axis. And then you went through a transformation and you took control of your life to revitalize and take over. And, many people who suffer from inflammation and flare-ups and any kind of health condition that is chronic, that comes and goes, it's almost like the universe is immediately talking to you. You don't have the flexibility of not listening.
Yeah.
And so it puts you straight back into alignment. Like the moment you stray, you feel it. So it's kind of a blessing and a curse.
Yep.
But you are tuned in and you can, you are able to listen and to empower yourself. And I wish you well, as you continue this journey. But also keep in mind, especially as we went through the Virgo Pisces, is that some of these health vulnerabilities is our immune system upgrading
Mm.
because there are new threats, there are new rhythms, there are new realities, and our immune system needs to constantly pick up on that. And the need to retreat allows your system to know where to change and how to upgrade itself. So sometimes that's what's happening, and we need to honor that. On a personal level, it's interesting because age 18 and a half is when I had my nodal return, and that's when I got into astrology. And the funny thing is that even though I liked studying astrology, I had no idea that it would become a central part of my life. And that's what can happen during these nodal eclipse times. If it hits your chart more specifically, is that at the time you may not realize that the change is happening or that something is going to be important for you. You may meet someone and you think it's random, and then this person becomes your spouse, right? But you didn't realize it at the time. So when I speak about the future, and I think this will also maybe speak to you, is Leo has to do with the fire. Aquarius has to do with air, and that's why it's in the clouds. And Leo, is the flame of the lion, right? This flame is something that we have to protect because the flame is existence and it's our own agency. If the flame goes out, we are in darkness. But how can we make sure that the flame stays lit? At some point we will die, and who's going to keep the flame burning? So Leo has to do with finding your own light, beaming, shining your own light. But it also has to do with making sure that the light stays on even after you move on. And that is why it has to do with who's continuing what you're doing. What are you leaving behind? When you write your book, that's the flame that stays lit because somebody is going to read your book even after you're gone. And that is the power of this period of time, is how are you going to influence, inspire, bring something to the world that has lasting value.
Absolutely. And I think in this season that we are in, Jupiter, the planet Jupiter, is also in Leo. And we don't just get the eclipses, we also get these different planets. I'll just say side characters, but they're not quite side. They're quite meaningful and impactful. What do you think, if you add all these other planets, that the game players that's involved in this time, what do you think it's trying to tell us or teach us?
I'm going to refer viewers to my YouTube channel because I have a video that is more extensive, more in detail about this, called 2026 Part 2. And it's very layered and complex. There's a lot of shadow to that, but there's also, we need to understand the shadow in order to know how to make the proper changes. But this Jupiter in Leo has a lot of energy because Jupiter amplifies. And it also brings ideology, beliefs. So, in a positive way, it brings a greater vision. And it has no, excuse me, no boundaries. You can go, you can take risks. It's time for you to accomplish. It's time for you to ride your horse into your destiny or the next chapter of your destiny. But the risk with these energies is that the fire may burn the whole forest. You know, the lion has a spiritual purpose to keep us from abusing power. This is why it's on top of the food chain. Because if you are not using your power properly, you can cause a lot of damage. And this Jupiter in Leo can go both ways, where people are going to think about the future in a selfish way, in a way that serves a very private agenda. And we see that with some leaders who want to control humanity through, negative means, surveillance and technology, and using AI not only to advance technology, but to monitor everything we do and turn humanity into, I don't know what. So as we become more aware of that, we can be more in charge of our own destiny and protest that. It's interesting that if we look at history, the last time that Jupiter was in Leo opposing Pluto in Aquarius, as it is happening now, was the French Revolution. And what was the French Revolution about? It was about the monarch, using the feudal system and taking advantage of people. And so that kind of reversed the balance of power. And this Jupiter in Leo, I suspect, along with the nodes and the eclipse, will create a shift in leadership, will create situations where some leaders will get carried away. They won't know where to stop, and there's going to be a backlash. In our own lives, it's an incredibly creative time. And creativity is art, it's business, entrepreneurship, it's biological. Some people will want to have children. So there's this abundance of let's just do it, of let's have faith in life. My hope, putting it out there, is that the Jupiter in Leo, if we speak about the fire burning, will not just be about human fire, but it will be about protecting life. Many species going extinct. Think about fire and going extinct. Their flame is going out. Not just animals, but vegetation, trees and ecosystems. So maybe Jupiter in Leo will bring enough wisdom to reignite the fire for those who are on the verge of. And it's interesting that scientifically, there's also research now to bring back extinct species back into life through DNA and cloning, and I know that kind of technology. It's a can of worm. But it's interesting from a symbolic point of view that Leo wants to reignite the fire. It wants to bring back life.
Absolutely. When you speak about this, I really recount my memories in Timbavati, South Africa. And I know you've done some extensive work with that region, with the White Lions. And I was there for a month, and we bridged the wisdom of the stars with the wisdom of the earth. And Linda Tucker is such a powerful, majestic being that really made all of this possible. And for those who are curious about this, I really recommend the book, um, The Mysteries of the White Lion, right? Children of the Sun God. And I remember when you told me to read that book, I read it in a day, and it's just like true resonance. And before I know it, I'm in Africa. But why I want to bring this up right now, because it's so symbolic through astrology, and it really matches everything that you have shared there. And my personal account there was witnessing true regeneration through the wisdom of leadership. And it's actually this phenomenon called trophic cascade. And the experiment was once done in Yellowstone, where wolves were reintroduced to the land and the entire ecosystem regenerated itself, right? And I saw this very same picture when I was there in Timbavati, where in the enclosure in the land where the lions were grazing its paw on the land, the ecosystem is thriving. And on the other side of the fence, where cut to kill industry, the over-commoditization of nature, illegal poaching and stuff was practiced, the land was just kind of like dead. That startled my mind because it was like a cognitive dissonance of like, this is great. What's wrong with that side of thing? Which brings me back to the whole idea of a spontaneous healing that can be done really quickly if we choose to. And I thought maybe healing is not about the crisis of technology or modalities. I don't think we lack of that. It's really a crisis of leadership, that whether we choose to do that or not. And I took that principle and bring it back into my life, into my body. If trophic cascade had happened in nature, can it happen in my body? Right? Because my body is nature, and nature is, made me who I am. And true enough, during COVID, I think the blessing of the lockdown showed me that I could heal without any modalities. And the true leadership that I bring it back to myself was love, right?
Mhm.
And you can't heal a body that you hate, or you can't heal a community that you have judgment on. And I realized love is this missing link that is it's not spoken enough about.
Let me be honest with you for a moment. There's so many of us learning and learning and learning, yet our lives have not changed. A lot of us go into sound healing, retreats, workshops, and we know so much but integrate so little. Sometimes we can even have a high, a dopamine high of learning new insights, new methods, new practices, and sometimes we can feel that inner peace within us as if we have already come home to ourselves. And then something happens. A cognitive dissonance is what I call it, where we feel so good on the inside, but our relationships, our business, our money is still as bad. And I know this because I have lived it. I have gone through 100 plus healing modalities over 15 years through 5 continents, and yet I wasn't able to heal, and I was stuck in knowing too much, but so frustrated because I could not transform my lives. This is why I have a 6 weeks transformational program that is designed to bridge the inner peace that you feel from within with all the inner work that you do to outer abundance, so that it shows up in your relationship, in your business, in your career, and in your money. And most importantly, in your health. This is for you if you are like me, that you're done with just learning empty things and unable to apply it into your own life. This is for you if you're looking for a container that goes beyond learning, but focuses on applying, taking action, implementing into our lives, where your inner peace finally is represented in your outer reflection, in your business, relationship, money, and health. This is for you if you're looking to create true freedom finally, and you're ready to take action, implement, and integrate those things that you have learned into the rest of your lives. I'll walk you through my signature framework of taking those 5 steps that is going to create the true freedom that you're looking to manifest. This program is not for the faint-hearted that just wants to learn and test things out. There's no hype here, just deep, honest work. If you're in the season that you're ready to quantum leap and step into the life of true freedom in just a matter of 6 weeks, this is for you. The link is in the show notes in the description below under 6 weeks transformational program. Now back to the episode.
And we all know Leo is the sign of the heart, the sign of that love that it's missing in the world. And Aquarius is our intellect, our brain, our foresight and vision. what's some practical advice from, daily practices, routines that people can do to bridge the gap between the heart and the brain, our thoughts and our hearts together?
Thank you. I mean, it's very relevant. And to add to, your experience and your sharing, when you think about what is happening in nature, and especially preservation, conservation, and living in healthy ecosystem, because the problem is not just a species going extinct, which is sad enough, but is how it cascades, it impacts everything else. So when you reintroduce something healthy, everything heals. When you take away something, it takes down everything else. So when we see leaders today who are working in very, on immediate gratification stimulus, so what do I get from this right now, without thinking about consequences and ecosystem impact? We are now in a very, very critical time. So one of the things that we need to really come to terms with is that money cannot justify everything. The fact that you can buy something
Mm.
doesn't mean you are entitled. For example, people say, I want to go to Africa and I'm paying this amount of money, so I am entitled to see all the lions and to shoot one because I paid. And I'm talking about even over tourism. Every place on earth today is overrun by tourists, to the point where even people who are well-meaning, who don't go and kill and destroy, but just by the fact that they want a piece of everything, they want a piece of nature, they end up affecting it. We see this. I live in a beautiful town in the southwest of the United States where there's a lot of natural beauty, but it's so natural, it's so beautiful that there are too many people and it ends up destroying it. So this sense that because I have the means, I'm entitled to get things is not working any longer. If we go today to Timbavati and to the White Lion, the Leadership Academy, one of the principles that they will tell you is that respect is above all, and then love. So, yes, you fund and you support financially, and there's a reason why you want to contribute, but that doesn't give you rights to lose respect, to take. And so if we talk about practice, I think focusing on heart-centeredness, and focusing on respecting, and focusing on where do I feel entitled, can be a very important game changer. And I want to also add that when we speak about opening the heart, it's not just on the romantic aspect of it. Think about whether every day when you wake up and you see the light of the sun every morning, do you want to give to this world? Do you feel like you want to wake up? You want to engage? Because some people may say, why bother? I'd rather stay in bed. It's easier. And yeah, oh, I have to pay the bills, so I have to go to work, and I have to, and I don't want to, but that's not heart-centeredness. So heart-centeredness is finding your way to feel that you want to give to this world. And you can get paid for it through your job and service, but it is about the willingness to be here, which, of course, all of us go through phases where we feel it's a little bit too much. But then, how do we recharge? How do we recalibrate? How do we reignite this flame that is kind of flickering in the wind and it's almost going out? And we're in despair, or we're becoming cynical. And so that kind of Leo Aquarius axis is about reigniting your fire and your love. And this eclipse, if you want to do a ritual, August 12th, think about giving life, plant a tree, free the bird, donate to something that has impact and meaning, and even just sit in prayer and honor and respect and appreciate gratitude what's around you. Make a list of all those things that got you where you are today.
Amazing. So, Maurice, after 3 decades, 30 years of practicing astrology, and you probably start to know a lot of things. And I'm sure the more you know, the more you don't know. And the wonder and astrology continues to wow you. I'm still wondering, what are some questions you have about the human soul or the human experience that still kind of keeps you up at night and keeps you thinking?
I mean, where to begin? It's a very vast question. But to me, one of the things that is really kind of in my mind these days is how humanity, on the one hand, progresses and moves forward and resolves problems. You know, we are able to eliminate some diseases. We are able to improve human rights and freedoms. We are able to enhance human potential. We live longer and we do more. So, we pack into one lifetime what we did in 5 or 10 lives, a century ago.
Right.
Because our brain has developed, our technology has developed, our perception of time has changed. But then, I come and meet as as humanity has so much greatness and potential, and we made so much progress. How do we go back to repeat very old mistakes that we thought we were done with, right? That we now have a constitution. We have a Geneva Convention. Um, we have the UN. We have all kinds of tools that allow us to create more productivity and harmony and support vulnerability. And then, you know, we see war crimes being repeated. And, recently, one of the United States representatives said that he's going to go after the International Criminal Court because he says it's going against the interests of the United States.
Oh, wow.
So a system that is supposed to keep ethics and morality and, abuse and power in checks, they want to dismantle that so that nobody's going to check on them, and there's not going to be any prosecution ever.
Mm,
That is very puzzling to me, is how we can quickly reverse, backpedal. And that goes back to appreciation. Let's not take anything for granted.
absolutely. Now I'm just wondering, like, if every leader in the world right now has a personal astrologer by their side, a personal advisor, how do you imagine that this could change their lives and then the world in a better way?
I mean, it's tricky because astrology is powerful and it can be misused.
Mm,
So some people will use astrology for selfish purposes. What they're going to use it to defeat their enemies and to show the weakness in other people, take advantage. So astrology is not in and of itself the solution. You need consciousness. You need values. It works in context. Ultimately, it's going to backfire because the universe doesn't support narcissism and abuse. But some damage can be done until then. You saw many in the course of history, so many leaders using astrologers, and it wasn't always to benefit humanity. So we need to actually safeguard astrology. To me, it's like a path of priesthood where it's a language of the universe. You need to honor, respect this language, go through due process, and and make a pledge that just like a doctor has an oath that they are not going to harm their patient. It needs to happen in astrology as well for those reasons.
and you
But
have written an oath for yourself as well for us students. And I remember that reading that oath is just like one of the biggest reasons why I chose to learn from you. And it's just like it hits home.
beautiful, thank you. But the positive way, one of the things I personally experienced is one time I was swimming with dolphins.
Mm.
And I said, if I could bring all the leaders here to swim with dolphins, it they would not want to abuse anything. It resets you. And if you use astrology in a benevolent way, it makes you be on time. Just like, to explain to people what does that mean to be on time, if you know that summer is coming, you are going to plan activities for the summer. If you know winter is coming, you're not going to go in a bikini to the beach. So astrology gives you that foresight. It explains to you what cycle you're in, what is the best way to operate right now. And it's not just mental because it's something you feel. The same way that you can feel the weather changing, but it gives you a clearer roadmap so you don't have to just walk in the fog and discover things. You have that bird eye perspective. It's as if astrology is like we take you to the stars and we make you look at your life from above. And so you can see the whole thing, not just what's in front of you. You see the past and the present and the future and how it can unfold because you have agency. So if leaders would use that wisely, you know, miracles would not be called miracles. They would be matter of fact.
Mm. Re-engineered.
Yeah.
So for people listening to this, and I think the past hour you have brought us to a lot of wonder what astrology can do for us personally and collectively. For those of us who want to start this journey, start this path, how would you share, for them to start?
Yeah, I mean, today astrology is accessible easily. You go to YouTube, and there's a lot happening there. But imagine that you want to study, these sacred principles of universal wisdom. There are three ways to learn, three stages. One of them is to just taste a little bit, read a book, explore, then choose a mentor that you resonate with and go from A to Z with that mentor because you need that rigor. It's a system that requires not just practice and guidance, but it requires ethics and proper use of knowledge. So you can only get to the depth and to the real essence of those secrets if you get proper guidance, because otherwise the universe won't let you in. And then once you complete, a certificate or a comprehensive program, then you learn from direct experience because the stars keep spinning, the cycles keep happening. And then you learn directly from what's happening, from the people you meet, from news headlines. And that keeps you awake. It keeps you in alignment with life. And so, yes, if you are interested in studying, I, of course, offer many opportunities, whether you want to just study fundamentals or you want, a more comprehensive training, you can check out the website.
Definitely. I'll now put the link in the show notes for anybody of you who are interested in this.
One more thing before we continue. You have been listening to Maurice Fernandez Astrological Insights, and by now you should feel his energy that he is deep in his wisdom and someone who shares with integrity. There was never once that I have regretted learning astrology from him, because not only that he's able to share predictive methods to analyze astrological charts in a precise manner, he was able to show me the depth of astrology, of why certain things had to happen, and help me understand how the universe works. More than just, getting a reading from someone. Learning to be able to read your own chart produces and opens up a door for you for a deeper understanding about yourself. His comprehensive diploma teaches you how to be a professional astrologer, but more than that, it's really about self-discovery, self-knowing, and giving yourself a tool to be able to navigate life through uncertain and unknown moments. If you're someone who had always been curious about the stars, Maurice has many ways where you can start your astrological studies. From a long-term diploma, it's a 3-year program, to just taking a one-off module, to watching his YouTube videos, all is available. Depending on where you are in your astrological learning journey, all is catered for you. If you're curious on what it means to learn astrology, apply in your life, you can check out the links in the show notes below, and I'll show you all the options to learn astrology, depending on your needs and your commitment in the moment. Now back to the show.
So, Maurice, we're coming to an end and the closing of this podcast episode. And we have a tradition here in the Lighthouse Initiative podcast. We end with the same question for every guest. And the question is this: for someone going through some form of darkness right now, and you see the Lighthouse exists to show people there's land, there's safety in a moment of darkness, what is one piece of light you would like to share with them right now?
I want to, first of all, explained that you are a Leo yourself. And so you shining this beacon of light in the darkness is capturing what you're doing here very, very beautifully. One piece of advice is to trust the process, because we may want to do too much too quick, and then we self-sabotage. When I speak of trust, especially that now that we covered all this, if you are yourself, if you are authentic to your true nature, things will happen to you naturally. You will be in alignment. And trust that if you bring goodness, if you bring light, if you share this light in the darkness, there will be a response. There will be an ecosystem that you'll be part of. And one thing will lead to another. That's my experience, at least. When I got into alignment and I was ready to say yes, and astrology knocked on my door and I said yes, it happened gracefully, gradually. And no one believed that I would amount to anything, because it's such a, misunderstood path. But, it made me very happy.
Powerful.
So that can be part of this cycle that we're in now.
Amazing. Thank you, Maurice, for your time, your wisdom, and your light. I'm sure many people appreciate this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chiron.